Thanks for logging on to Wayne.com for another edition of Inside the Zone, talking Komets hockey with Blake Sebring. I hope everybody's colon has recovered after what could have been a rough Sunday. This guy put me through the ringer with a little chili, but it was pretty tasty. I'll give you that. Nobody wants to know about this digestive system. They want to know all about the Komets. Really a good week. Throw out the end of Friday's game. 5 of 6 points. We have talked in weeks past. They needed like that 1 week to really jump a bunch of people in the standings, and to a degree they did that this past week.
Yeah, but come on.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're right. 5 out of 6, but the one you thought you were really counting on is the one that fell apart. And how many weeks does that happen? I mean, like I wrote, they were really looking to really make headway, and then they have to start over again almost. It's like the poor fans. I mean, 7 wins out of 20 home games, that's not going to pay the bills.
Right. But in the Eastern Conference standings right now, they went from 10th to 8th. Obviously, it's tight from about 6th, 7th down to 10th.
Actually, it's tighter. It's from 3rd down to 10th. It's unbelievable.
But, I mean, positions could change in a week from anywhere from 6 to 10, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
Almost nightly, based on the way things are going.
From the time one batch of games ends, and then there's an hour later, an hour and a half later, when the next batch ends, and it gets mixed up pretty good.
So the positive after getting 5 of 6 points, 6 possible points this week, is that the Komets are now in 8th. If the playoffs started, they would be in there, and they have only played 42 games. Orlando ahead of them, they've played 41. But I guess the good thing is Greenville and Wheeling behind them have both played 44, so the Komets
there's a chance to get some breathing room.
Right.
I mean, where you could maybe take a deep breath and then focus on the next 2 teams in front of you. There's definite possibility that way.
Biggest positive this week, I think fans have been waiting all season long for the Komets to add some offensive punch. And they did that twice this week. Jason Dale and Dean Willett. Mm-hmm. What does their addition mean to the Komets as a whole at this point in the season?
Well, these are 2 guys who really make you stronger overall because they're centers. And they can win the faceoffs, they can kill penalties, they can be on the power play. They're good defensively. They make you better all over the ice, which is something they desperately needed to strengthen up at the center position. And you can allow, Sean Kozlowski to play wing, and you can maybe strengthen some other areas that way too. You can really improve your third line offensively, maybe with a little bit more punch, a little bit more of a consistent threat.
Are these 2 moves that can get them over the hump as far as those teams that are battling for the 8th playoff spot?
Who knows? And I say that not because I disrespect those 2 players at all, but it's more of, who's going to be here tomorrow? You don't know. Mm-hmm. One of them could get a call up tomorrow, and you're starting all over again. That's just the way the league works.
Scott Fleming, we talked about it last week. Fantastic in his rookie season. You said he's the biggest diamond in the rough, maybe in the entire ECHL.
Yeah, considering he hadn't played for a year and a half.
He's up in Worcester now, which is part of why the latest acquisitions were so important, is Fleming moving up. But when do we expect him down? Because Gary Graham said, he could be up there for a while, and he's obviously been a big part of what the Komets have done this season.
Again, you don't know in the AHL, the way they work with the ECHL, they never tell you anything. They just expect them to take your player and you to like it. So that's just the way it works with the AHL and the ECHL.
Does that increase the importance of getting guys like Dale and getting Willett?
Definitely. But it also makes you wonder, you're right, what can happen when Fleming comes back? How much better could they be all over the place then? And that kind of thing, too. And plus, they've really been, knock on wood, blessed with all the IR stuff, too. They have been very healthy so far. They've been pretty lucky.
One guy who you mentioned, the Komets have been healthy, but obviously OJ wasn't healthy last year, and then he's been put on reserve. Talk about the injury that he suffered, because it doesn't sound like it's going to be anything major, but you just don't like to hear OJ and knee, I guess, in the same sentence.
No, not at all. Or shoulder or whatever. Mm-hmm. But, with Chris, I think if this had been a playoff game, I think he would have played Saturday. But, why take a chance? If you can rest him Saturday, if you can get through that game, then you got a whole week, essentially, to really rest him up well. And so why not take that chance? That's the same thing they did with Simone Danny Pepin. I mean, if it was a playoff game, he might have been able to play, but you could really rest him essentially for 2 weeks here. So it worked out well.
You wrote an interesting article about
thank you.
Fleming moving up. Well, it is, because Mbach has played well at
Very.
times, really most of the time that he's been here. So he's afforded a new opportunity. What can he do? He had 2 goals in the game against Cincinnati.
But he played with the top line for one game.
For one game.
And then they moved him back because they wanted to move Ouellette up and Dale up and put a more natural center in that spot. And then when Auger got hurt Friday night, they moved Ouellette up to play with Dale and Marino. So, but what it does is there's a much more competition now for playing time on the top spots, playing time on the power play. It's like, producer, you're going to get sit because there's another guy over here who's pretty good too.
That brings me to my next point, because I was sitting there thinking about all the lines that they have. What are their top 2 lines at this point, given that Auger is out and given that Fleming is up in the AHL?
What game is it, and how do they match up with the opponents?
That has a lot to do with it.
It really does.
Which tells you a lot, though.
It does. I mean, it really shows you how far some of the defensemen have come from the start of the year when they were just rookies, just starting out. So you look at it that way, too, because you're not just doing forward lines, you're doing 5-man units. And it kind of depends on how you want to match up individually with who the opponent is.
And we've mentioned all season long about a little inconsistent in terms of the goaltending, what you would see night in and night out. Gary Graham, very, very happy with what Mac did Saturday in Cincinnati. So how much of a boon is this going forward for this team to see Mac play like that?
It helps, but there were some times in the first period where it could have been 5-0 instead of 2-0. He's got to get better rebound control. I'll give you an example. They were on the penalty kill. Jason Dale was the center on the penalty kill, and he broke his stick. So you've got your 5-on-3 essentially. And there was a long shot from the blue line. He saw all the way. That's when you cover up for the face-off. Let's get a new stick out here. Let's just freeze it and reset. And he couldn't control the rebound, even though he saw it coming the whole way, and he kicked it right to a Cincinnati guy and had to make a big save then. I mean, there are things like that. Ben Meisner does a little bit better job of, he'll control his rebounds to the corners or even kick them out front further along the line if there's an opening there, or he'll just cover up for a face-off. He makes it easier on his defense to play. Then I'm talking the whole team defense, not just his defensemen. If he's controlling the rebounds, the other guys can concentrate and hold their man up a little bit more, so they're not as worried about it. With Andre, they're turning around right away. It's like, where's the puck? Where's the puck? I gotta get the puck out. They're not relaxed at all. They're not confident as much. Maybe a game like that would help, but he would still get up a lot of rebounds. Well,
going from defense to offense, I feel like I have to ask this again. Obviously, they added some offensive parts this past week, but still, Orlando, Utah, any progress on those 2 fronts? Because Komets fans are wondering, when is it going to happen?
I'm wondering. I mean, I sat down with Gary Graham last week to ask him specifically about this, very detailed, and he was like, okay, David Rutherford was the guy. That deal was completed. So now we're looking at the to-be-named later guy from Orlando. Well, the to-be-named later guy, both sides have to agree on who it is. So say the Komets have their eye on somebody. What if Orlando doesn't want to give up that guy? Or what if Orlando wants to give you X guy and the Komets aren't interested in him? And what if Orlando's down to 9 forwards because of injury possibly? They're not going to give up the guy.
Right.
So you're really stuck that way. I mean, it has to be both parties agreeing, and that's the hard part. And I think the Komets are trying to concentrate on Orlando before they see what they get from Utah. Because, again, sometimes when you do a player to be named later, you get a list of 5 guys, and you've got a deadline of 3 weeks, and you get to pick one of those 5 guys. That wouldn't work with this way. This way is both sides have to agree. And their feeling is, Orlando says, well, we already gave you Rutherford. It's not our fault he didn't come. So they're looking at it. It's got to fit both ways. It's not a great answer. There's no deadline on it. It's just,
it's open-ended.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, and I ask them every time I talk to them, and they'll tell you, it's like, we're working on it. Okay. I mean, and I've asked them specific names. They're not commenting on specific people or anything.
With the Dale deal, Komets gave cash to Ontario Reign in that one. That seems, do the Komets, maybe more so than other teams, because they don't have many veterans, do they have a little bit more cash to throw around and get players?
Not necessarily. What they have is they have the salary cap space. Because they cleared out all those higher paying guys earlier, They have the salary cap space. They have 2 veteran spots still available that they can use. Now, not every team has 2 veteran spots. Jason's not a veteran. He will be next year. But not every team has the flexibility that they can afford to do that kind of thing. And Ontario, they didn't need a player back because they got 3 affiliates. They were just looking for roster space. So it was more of, if you pay to get him out there, maybe that's the deal. I don't know. That'll be good enough for us. Just take him off our hands. That could be. You just never know.
Well, how big of a week is it for the Komets? Because you look at the schedule this week, obviously they had a lot of success against Cincinnati this past Saturday, but they got Cincinnati on Saturday again, and then 2 games with Kalamazoo sandwiched that game. So Kalamazoo 6th in the standings, obviously, a team that they're very familiar with, Colin Chalk, we've gone over that many times. How big of a week? Because these are teams that you can make ground on, specifically Kalamazoo.
Yeah, definitely. And you're playing Jordan Bennington. That's who you're going to face for those 2 games, without a doubt. And you'd guess Makarov's going to play again in Cincinnati. They've got to win at home. I don't care if they're playing the Russian Red Army team. I don't care if they're playing the Komets B Bantam team from Canland. You got to win at home. It's just all there is to it. I don't care who they're playing. They have to win at home.
And is that more so holding on to the lead? Because it seems like there have been times, just like this past week, where they started off, they look like gangbusters. Jace Coyle was amazing. Jason Dale came in and did what he was expected to do. And you just don't hold on. Well,
and why do you think you're good enough to think we could go play racehorse with anybody? It's like, that's not what this team is about. You're not that good. You're not that talented. And I don't mean that to slam the guys, but you got to be smarter about it. If there's opportunities, fine. But you've given up 4 3-goal leads at home. You cannot do that. It's just like you can't get caught up in the moment.
Final question: as you look forward to this week's schedule, what do you most have your eye on for these upcoming 3 games?
Glenn, we've talked from day one. It's the goaltending. I would love to see Andrei Markarov start making progress on controlling his rebounds. I think the kid has tremendous talent. He needs to work on the rebounds. He really does. He could make life so much easier for everyone on the team, his defense especially. Just cover up for some face-offs more. Do it 1 out of 2 times that you're kicking out rebounds. Just 1 out, 50%. If you could just grab on, And Ben Meisner, I just want to see him play as relaxed at home as he does on the road. He's amazing on the road. He's not fidgeting around. He's not, up, down, all over the place. He's not looking like he's playing ping pong. At home, he doesn't look comfortable yet, and he needs to be comfortable somehow.
All right, certainly 3 big games for the Komets against teams ahead of them in the standings. Could they make some headway? We'll have to see this coming weekend. But for Blake, I'm Glenn, and we'll see you next week talking Inside the Zone Komets Hockey.